Ma'am, when was the last time you did dirt biking?
So 1988 was the last competition I did. That was the last one. After that, I did not ride, and I stopped. The reason being, my dad found out accidentally that I'm riding, and then he bet me up black and blue because he was shocked I was doing something like this. Of course, he came and saw one of my last competition because I told him what I do, and he saw how dangerous that is. And then, like a typical father, he got me engaged and married. And then no riding after that.
So, and then you said from 2015, 2016, again you did this comeback. What were you doing in that gap? Like, you were not riding, there was this long gap, I think, not at all riding.
No. I did not even touch a two-wheeler for that matter.
Seriously?
Yeah, yes. Little bit I tried taking out my son in Port Blair on my husband's in Suzuki and all that, but then when he used to sail, so then people complained, and then he used to take away the key and park his bike on the jetty. 1 or 2 times I must have done. I had a little Sunny that I initially used in Chennai to go to school, take my son. But besides that, I did not touch a two-wheeler, forget motorcycling. Because marriage happened, then I became a mother. And totally forgot about it. I got so busy raising my son almost single-handedly because my husband, being in defense, he used to sail a lot. And then I was working simultaneously as a teacher. So I got busy, did not miss motorbiking because this was something new, again, a new challenge for me. And I wanted to be completely involved as a parent with my son. And with my teaching is not an easy job. Again, people think you get holidays and all that, but it's a lot of work. So a lot of corrections and all that. And I got so engrossed in it, and I was enjoying the process. I did not think about motorbiking. It did not cross my mind. I was happy doing what I was doing.
No, I thought that maybe you might have made some compromise or something, but you never came across, you never felt a regret that you missed it back then, or like never, you literally didn't even cross your mind.
No, I was very happy being a mother, being a teacher.
But you still remember?
No, I never, in fact, I would not even notice motorcycles. You will be surprised to know. I was so busy. So I did not miss motorbikeing at all. I was busy raising my son, being a mother, and totally 24/7 mom. Enjoyed being a mother because I was fascinated by this little boy in my life. And then eventually, you know, as he was growing up, since he was 2 years old, he started going to a nursery. I became a teacher, you know, so started going to school with him.
Are you a teacher too?
Yes. I'm a retired teacher. I've worked in one of the best schools in South India. Everywhere my husband got transferred. And I'm a very, very proud teacher. Before I became a motorbiker that I'm known now, I am proud to say that I'm a retired teacher. So I enjoyed being a teacher as well as to go to school with my son, and with his classes growing, I also went to the higher classes. So
how many years of this teaching?
Teaching from 1992 till 2015. You can do the maths.
So like around 23 years.
23 to 25 years, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So do you miss your teaching days now?
Yes, I do miss my teaching days. But I'm in touch with my students, ex-students. I do voluntary teaching sometimes. I do visit schools and colleges as a speaker, and you know, so I'm mostly surrounded by students. I help 10th standard kids in my building, or my friends' sons or daughters who are in the board, board batch. So if they have any doubt, I've been a geography teacher. So if they have any doubt, so they come to me. So I'm still in touch with my subjects and not actively in the classroom. But yeah, once a teacher, always a teacher.
So a geography teacher to a motorbiker.
Yeah, I am being a geography teacher, still exploring the geography while on my ride. So probably that's an advantage I have as a geography teacher. I understand the roads and the surrounding much better and get more involved, probably because of my background of geography teaching. But I was totally involved in that, and I did not miss motorbiking at all. How I got into motorbiking, I had some health issues while I was at Oak Ridge. I was in a good senior post, and my son was attending me in the hospital, and he was about to get into the academy. He's in the Merchant Navy now. He's a second officer. So he was attending me in the hospital. He said, Mama, I've never seen you living life for yourself. We were having this conversation. I said, yeah. So he said, why don't you now give up your job? I've seen you working very hard. You still have age with you. And why don't, once you recover from the surgery and all that, why don't you go back to doing something that you love? But I wonder, what were your passion when you were my age, in your teens and 20s? So I told him, trekking and motorbiking. He looked at me like this, said, what? He literally stood up. He said, I've never seen you doing either of it. I said, when do I do that? Where will I leave you and go? And I was busy, being a teacher and raising you. Where was the time? So he says, okay, now do one thing. Don't go back to the work. Now I will start earning again. So if you need any help or anything, whatever. But now, in the hospital, he registered me with the youth hostel, YHAI. And he said, now you start trekking. So, and then he said, get yourself a motorcycle. I said, you will be surprised to know, Gayatri, when he said that, I said, Sahil, my son's name is Sahil. I said, I don't know if I have that motorbiking in me anymore. Can you imagine that? So I said, maybe that was just related to the youth, and that when you're young, you want to do so many things. I said, I don't know, beta, if I want to be a motorbiker. He says, okay, maybe because you have not gone on to a motorcycle, we'll get you one. Get yourself from your saving, get yourself a motorcycle. If you ride, if you don't have it in you, it's okay, we'll sell off the bike or I'll use it. It will not go waste, but try, no, you never know. So I took it. I said, okay, let me try. And then once I recovered, first of all, I went and did about 6-7 treks with the youth hostel in the Himalayas. My highest was Chandrakhani Pass, which was 15,000 feet. Enjoyed a bit. During these treks, I used to meet these biking guys, some of them would be young boys who were bikers and all.
Oh, so, bikers and trekkers.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay. Like, what is your passion? So, motorcycle. I said, oh, even I want to ride and all that. So, when their attitude changed, they would talk about motorcycle. I said, okay, let me try. So, then I came to know through their, conversation that there are something called as the clubs, and there's something called as gears and all this.
Which you didn't know when...
We didn't have this kind of thing during that time. Or even if it was there, I was not aware, because there was no social media or the internet or the mobiles. There was no TV in my house as well. So it was only newspaper. And newspaper, what do you read much? I don't know, even if there was a biking news in it, I might not have read it. So anyway, so because of that, I got more interested. So every time I would come back from the trek, by then 2015, 23rd December 2015, my motorcycle came. Her name is Ellie, E-L-L-I-E, which is a short form for Esprit Libre, which means free spirit. Named by one of my ex-student, Diksha. She was my first pillion. So she designed the logo, and then she named her because she thinks that my bike is an extension of my personality. So then 2015 onward, I started practicing, as my son said. And trust me, I'm glad that I listened to my son, because initially I was struggling. So my very dear friend Sandhya, I didn't want to go alone. So she's not a biker. She always drives. She hardly sits on a two-wheeler, but she being a very good friend of mine, she said, okay, we'll come along. I'll come along. I said, what if we fall? We both will fall. No, we'll see. We'll see. And she didn't even have a helmet. So she borrowed it from some biker friend of hers, and she used to come with me to Beamley. Early morning, we used to go on Sundays, So I used to struggle because the gears have shifted from the right leg to the left leg. That coordination, because for many years. But just the way you don't forget driving, you don't forget swimming.
It's a muscle memory.
Yes. First Sunday, second Sunday, I struggled a little bit. Speed was slow. Cautious. Will I be able to ride? But it all came back slowly, and then the speed was there, the normalcy. I was casual, I was confident. I said, wow, it feels good. And all through Sandhya came. So you need crazy friends like this. And then another friend of mine, Arifa, she was there at my fair when I started my first ride. Then Anjali, another very dear friend of mine who's been there for every flag off of my ride. In fact, Anjali, Sandhya, they've actually sometimes, before my ride, just kept some 6,000-7,000 in my hand. Slowly, keep it in case of emergency you need. So you can say they are kind of sponsored my rides because they said, no, we like what you're doing, and just keep it. Not telling anybody. So, so that's how my journey slowly started. And then you'll be surprised to know, and this is not how professional bikers are, but I want to be honest. My first ride, I said, okay, I want to go to Shirdi. I'm not a very religious person, but my son is born on a Sai Baba Jayanti. I thought, let me take my motorcycle, my Ellie, and myself, take the blessing of Sai Baba, and then start my riding journey as such, because I was a retired person. So I said, how do I go to Shirdi? You will be laughing at it. See, I am basically from Pune. So I would take my son to go to my parents' place by Konark Express. Okay? How does Konark go from here to... So from Vizag, next stop is by Hyderabad, Vijayawada. Vijayawada to Hyderabad, Hyderabad to Solapur, Solapur to Pune, Pune to Shirdi, I know. Okay, we've gone few times when we were so. That's how I planned my itinerary.
See, you took the train stations and then you planned.
The train route. I did not follow the road route. I said, okay, I go one
follow
station.
the train.
Yeah. And then, this very famous rider was no more, Sana Iqbal. She had come during these practice times of mine to Gayatri Vidya Parishad. And by then I was part of a biking group, the Bikerni. And she had posted, anybody in Vizag from here? I said, oh, I'm here. So she said, I'm coming to Visakhapatnam. She was on an all India ride. Young girl. She died in an accident, poor thing. But I owe it to her. So she was the first biker I ever met. So I took my motorcycle. I was not riding. I was just doing these practice rides by then. I had a helmet and just the denim jacket. And I actually met her in Gayatri. And I saw her bike was, with that ready and with that thing at the back. And I took her to Rotary and then I spent an evening with her. That conversation changed my confidence. So she was doing a all India ride for suicide prevention.
Okay.
Young girl of 28, as old as my son that time, little older than my son. So and beautiful girl. So I said, if she's doing, and she was doing a solo ride.
All India.
Yeah. And so Vizag was part of it. So I said, if she can ride, I can also do. And one sentence she said, Gayatri, she said, Vishali, go for a ride. Anywhere, any help in the country you need. I'm almost finishing the ride. I will connect you to some biker or some help because I know people in every state, every city. Because she was on road for 7 months, 7 or 7.5 or 8 months. So I did not ask her for any help. Thankfully, I didn't need. But just knowing that if I need somebody, Sana is a phone call. She said, you call me anytime, 24/7, your phone, I will pick up. She was a working girl, young mother. So that confidence, okay. So, and then I spoke to her. I said, is it safe? She said, yeah, I have done my all India ride. And I was thinking, young girl, nothing has happened, not a bad experience. I said, okay, so India is safe. All this news that you hear, put it. And then one sentence she told me, I would like to tell this in front of the audience. She said, if you go out into the world with a good heart and a good vibe, you will only meet good people and positive people. And trust me, that has stayed with me, and that's actually what has happened. In the 65,000 kilometers, I've never had a bad experience, so to say. So I went with that. And that changed. And then I started planning. I said, okay, so she was in Hyderabad. She said, you come to Hyderabad, I'll host you. Vijayawada, there was a Rotary person because I was part of Rotary before. So somebody said, okay, they were very excited you're doing a ride. I said, sir, I don't have anybody in Vijayawada. We'll connect you to a Rotarian. So I had somebody in Vijayawada. Hyderabad Sana was there. Solapur, my very dear friend, Dr. Anjali's classmate from medical college. She was in Solapur. Taken care. Pune, I have my own house. Shirdi, I said, okay, we'll manage, sir. So taken care of. I said, okay. did not plan anything. I did not carry a map. I didn't know how to look into the GPS. I didn't have a smartphone. I just took off. I didn't know the structure of my, I just knew how to put it on, ignition. I knew how to change the gear. I knew where to fill up the petrol. And I took off. I just took off without, never do this. Plan your bike ride well. And I said, okay, follow the route of Konark Express. And I took off. 13th,
follow the train.
Yeah, so 13 July 2016, I started my ride. 17th July, I touched Shirdi. In the rainy season, I took off. But that ride changed my life. I owe it to my son. And I'm glad I did it because I found my core happiness.
Today is Thursday.
Riding. Yeah, today is Thursday again.
So if I draw parallels to the comeback and before that, the first time when you did motorbiking in college, the time when you approached those two guys to learn, and now when your son has given you, like, told you, like, you can do it again. I think there is a similarity, right? There. Like, there was somebody where you opened up, or there was some chance. That time there was that chance. When you went, this time it was destined to happen.
I agree. Somebody had to tell me you can do it, or maybe that I needed that push.
What if you didn't ask them?
Yeah.
What if your son didn't ask you that what were you doing when you were of my age then?
Yes. So probably I raised a good boy. Also maybe because I have allowed him to do whatever he wanted to. I have always supported. He's explored, chess, cricket, skating, cycling, music, everything. So I've always told, okay, try. You never know where you'll find your liking. So I've always been very supportive. His reading, Harry Potter books, where I've stood in the line at 5 or 13 out of Gupta brothers to take that first book. So, probably it all came back. So when he knew the mother has supported, and I don't know, he's a special child, he's given me the wings that I needed, and he is the wind beneath my wings probably. Because every time he's also very strict with me sometimes, so I'm scared of him. He said, Mama, are you exercising? Are you eating well? Are you doing this? Why haven't you taken out your motorcycle for last 2 weeks? Go, don't sit at home. So, because I'm studying also presently. I love motorbiking, but now I'm studying. So, go for a break. Go. So, he's the one who pushes me all the time. So, I owe it to him. The parallels, as you said, that time I went and asked. Here, he asked me. And somebody showing interest in how many children go and ask their mothers, what were you all liking? We need that. We need children to, because we mothers, we sacrifice so much, and then that becomes a norm of our life. We accept that, okay, we remain mothers, we forget we are women first. We were also girls first. And all our future we associated with our children, which should not be there. I would like to tell women in the 50s that live for yourself. You don't have to be guilty about it. Children are on their own after a certain age. And they would like to see their mothers doing things. Because I've seen, when I became independent and started exploring and started being adventurous, indirectly I was teaching my son, who's observing, that, you can do this. So they're observing, right? And when you're happy, the children are happy to see you happy. They don't want you to be a typical mother once they grow up, because they are living a life. So somewhere I saw that, in my growth was his growth. His growth, I was also being happy. So it's a give and take, So children should always motivate the mother, especially because we accept the norms as and when we go. And we forget that we are women also. So because of him, when he asked me that question, I realized, oh, he's interested in knowing what was my passion. And if not for him, I was not missing motorbiking. I wouldn't have found this identity. I wouldn't have found forget the fame and the recognition. I wouldn't have found my happy place. Because motorbiking is like meditation for me. I feel so happy when I'm riding because I'm doing it just for myself. I sing loudly inside my helmet. I'm meeting new people, I'm meeting strangers. I'm doing what I love. Nobody is questioning me, why are you wearing this, why are you going? So I'm just being myself, free. So that makes me really happy, you know. So I owe it to those two friends of mine who accepted my question and taught me, and to my son who showed interest in knowing what I wanted to do and pushed me. So yeah, but it was more difficult for the comeback because, you know, your age, you're a mother, you're a teacher, so society forms judges
I'm
you.
pretty sure the students who are watching this will be like, our geography teacher. No, it is like, I've seen her as a teacher. She's teaching us, she's correcting her mark papers and all. Now she's a biker. Look, mom, she's a biker now.
I would like to tell you, see, all my tattoos, my ex-student has done all my tattoos, and he's so excited. I have about 23 tattoos on me. So he every time says, which student gets to do a tattoo on your teacher? So he is super excited when I go, ma'am, when are we doing the next tattoo? so imagine a teacher going to a student for the tattoos. So yeah, my students also equally. When I say kids, my son and the students, they have been so supportive and they're so excited about everything, you know. So my students are all over the globe. So when they send a message, ma'am, we are so proud of you. Your ride inspired me. So that means a lot to me.
So in the first ride, you thought of, let's follow the train
Konark
route.
Express.
But I'm pretty sure after riding for so many kilometers, even though every place you go, you found that there was somebody to help you out or something, but there might be some incidents where you might have lost somewhere, you might have been betrayed by the Google Maps. Or no network, or there's nobody around. So how did any incident like this occur?
Oh, many incidents. 65,000 kilometers, so many incidents. First of all, there's no direct help as such. Only thing is, now I form a WhatsApp group where my doctor friend is part of the group. Then there is a biker brother of mine who knows everybody associated with many clubs. He's pretty well recognized. Then there is my Avenger mechanic in the group. One family member to know where I am. So my live location is shared there. In case I have a stomach upset or a medical emergency, my doctor friend helps, and she's a family, so she's close friends. You know, somebody in Vizag should know where you are. So she's like the point of thing. So that is the help I have, and wherever my destination is. Suppose I'm going to Vijayawada, so my host in Vijayawada or a local club person will get added to that group till I'm out of Vijayawada. You understand?
Yes.
So that is dynamic. Like every city then gets added to that group. So because when I'm riding, I can't sit and chat or message.
Yes.
So this support system. So my itinerary is there. People know, numbers are there. So if I'm not able to contact, they will know whom to contact. So this kind of help is there. But otherwise, I don't need much help. Now, of course, the apps have come where, you know, you have the petrol bunks and even the mechanics. According to your bike, where will you have registered mechanics? That's also there on the maps.
Okay.
So and these maps have been formed by bikers themselves, you know, passionate bikers. So that So there are many helps like this. Where is the petrol bunk? Where will you have a safe place to stop? Which biking club is there in that area registered? Yeah, so a lot of things are coming up like that. So anyways, I lost the track of your question. So you asked me
any
incidents. Yes. So during my first ride, as I told you, I did not plan. How we have this movie called Chennai Express. I went the Konark Expressway. I went by the highway, you know, Vijayawada, Hyderabad. From Hyderabad, I was on the way to Solapur. Straight highway, beautiful road. But again, you know, you being trying to be adventurous, and though my friend and her husband had told me, Dr. Amit and Dr. Anjali, they also travel, but in the car, they travel a lot. Listen, you're going through some part of Karnataka, some of the roads are very dicey, they don't have any signs and anything, so be careful when you are going through Karnataka. But in that excitement, you overlook, okay, I'm a traveler, I know, geography teacher, I can figure it out. Okay. And then you're getting bored of the highways. First ride, I didn't want to explore too much. I don't know what went into me, Gayatri. I was very well going to Solapur, okay? There was a road, I said, no, I will explore the interiors. I want to explore. You know, you've got confident after so many years. You've already done halfway. You've gone till Hyderabad all by yourself. Oh yes, I've arrived, and rocking it. I said, okay, what more? I'm almost there, halfway now. And Solapur onwards is Maharashtra, my area. I can figure it out. And I don't know, that split second, there was a road on the left, and I just turned. I thought, okay, how much will I go inside? You take inside, somewhere that road will come back on the highway, is my perspective. No physical map on me. I didn't know how to see GPS because the phone was new, so Rohit Memorial Trust said, okay, you're doing this right, so you use our name and then associate, so they sponsored a smartphone with me, which I didn't know how to use, and then later on it broke also, so they gave that phone to me for mentioning their trust in this. I said okay, because they were doing something with the girl child, and I being a teacher, me being a teacher, I'm always associated with the education of girl child and all that. So we went with that, but didn't know how to use the phone. Network was not there, no signs, didn't know the language. I got in, explore, okay, enjoying the nature and all that. And this was around in the afternoon. 4 o'clock, I realized that last 2 hours, it just struck me. I had not stopped for peeing. I was feeling hungry. I had not stopped for my whatever lunch or some snacks. It had started raining, and I realized that last 2 hours I've been going around and I have not seen people or any houses, which I realized after 2 hours, enjoying the nature. Barren land. I was scared to stop because I didn't know the basic of the motorcycle, and I was scared, what if it stopped? And then when I looked into the phone, no network. Petrol is half already. I was scared. I had a big lump in my throat and a big, I was scared. My stomach was in my throat. I said, what do I do? Where am I? I didn't know. I was going around. No signs, nothing. I said, where am I? I don't know. I was lost. For 4 to 5 hours, I didn't know where I was. I was going round and round and round and no way out. But again, sports and somewhere that dirt biking thing or kind of personality I have, I said, okay, if I'm scared, you can't think right. When you're scared, you can't think right. So I told myself that, okay, calm down, gather your thoughts, we'll see. There has to be some way out. So they cannot, you're not at the end of the, earth. And I prayed. I said, Sai Baba, I'm coming to you. Please take me out of this, because if something happens to me, all these friends who said, why you want to do this, they will come and kick my dead body. And people wouldn't even know where I am because no network, where am I? So I was very scared. But then I said, okay, don't be scared. I just prayed to my Ganpati Bappa. I said, okay, I closed my eyes for the vehicle is running. Closed my eyes and opened, and I looked up, and there was one road I had not explored, was on a little hilly road. And I could see something shining on the top. It was around 4:35. I said, okay, let me take a chance. So I went on to that road.
So from afternoon onwards till 4?
So it's around 12ish to 4:35. I was, yeah.
Okay.
Around 11:30 I must have taken the detour. And then I was remembering what Dr. Amit had said, that don't go exploring unknown roads in Karnataka. I said, why did I not listen to it? So anyway, that was a learning experience. And then this tin, that was a tin. So it was a tea stall. I go there, some 3-4 guys, huge ones sitting there. I had to take out my helmet. They thought, I look like an alien with that gear and full helmet and gloves. And so when I removed, they realized it's a woman. So they all gathered, and what I'm saying, they're not understanding. What they're saying, I didn't understand. I said, now how do I communicate that I want to go somewhere, which is this place? Okay. Luckily for me, and because I'm sure all my friends were praying for my first ride, Arifa must have prayed. So all religious gods must have come together. Let's save this girl because everybody's praying. One retired teacher of that village was coming on some old scooter from there, and then he saw all this commotion. One lady with all that gear and thing like that. So he broken English. We had a conversation that sign language and this and that, and wrote that I've lost my way. He understood. I was supposed to go to Solapur. I said, Solapur is far away. Where are you? Later on, of course, I would like to tell you, when I came back from this ride, I saw on the map where I was. I was lost in those abandoned quarries of Kolar. Where was I supposed to go? Where did I turn and where I went? I have no idea. There was just stones and stones everywhere, So anyway, he said, Madam, it's no chance that you go to Solapur. I said, which is the next big city? He said, Gulbarga. I said, oh, I know Gulbarga. It comes in the Konark Express. Me and my Konark Express. So I said, okay, I know Gulbarga. Okay, so I couldn't even call anybody because there was no network. I said, okay. So he said, ma'am, Gulbarga is still far away. I said, but even if it's dark highway, it's safe. I said, okay. So then he said, okay, you have to go through 2 villages, Sedam and Mudhol. I was so tense that I wrote it down. I said, what in case I forget the name, So I wrote Sedam, Mudhol. Now imagine my bladder is full. I didn't want to drink more water, dehydrated, but not eaten. But I said, no, I have to just hit the highway. He said, just follow this small road and you keep going straight. Then you will get a circle with the old fountain. You turn left, that will be the second village. Just keep following, don't go anywhere, just main road, and you will hit the highway.
And you had to trust him.
I had to trust. Teacher, no? Teacher to teacher. So I had to trust him. I said, okay. So Sedam crossed. One place in Sedam, there was a dish antenna I saw, and there was one lady in the nightie. I thought maybe looked modern. So I said, can I use your toilet? She said, we don't have toilets. That village did not have toilets way back in 2016. They said, we all go to the field. Why no toilet? Because it's considered bad omen to have a toilet inside the house. Okay, so anyway, I did not stop. I didn't want to take another chance of, getting into the field or losing my way. I said, no, I want to go into a proper city. So I continued Sedam, then Mudhol, went. After Mudhol, slowly when I came, I was on that highway which I was supposed to be. And then I see Mumbai so many kilometers, Solapur so many kilometers, Gulbarga showing. I said I was supposed to be on this road, and this was around 7:30ish. So then it
was already dark.
Yeah. But highway, no? So I took a turn. As soon as I took a turn, there was a petrol bunk. Gulbarga was still far away, but now I just have to go straight. Stopped at that petrol bunk, used the toilet, had some little khakra, which I used to carry that time. Had little khakra, and my phone started ringing. It was network. So many missed calls because there was no, WhatsApp was not so advanced by then, live location and all that. So many, I used to stop after 1 hour and call my friends. No call for 6-7 hours, no? They're worried. So I did not tell anybody I lost my way, and what stupidity I did. I told them there was some problem with the motorcycle and network was not there. I'm safe, but I'm diverting to Gulbarga because I'm not reaching Solapur. Now I called up my host in Solapur that I'm not able to reach. I'm going to Gulbarga. So very sweetly, this doctor friend of Anjali said, listen, we have some friends in Gulbarga, doctor friends, but where are you? I said, I've just taken a turn. So it's another few kilometers. She said, okay, once you reach on the outskirts of Gulbarga, give me a call again. I'll direct you to their maternity home. I'm sure they'll have some bed for you. So I said, okay, I'm safe with somebody known. Because I've never stayed in hotels, and this was my first ride. So I went, called her up. She said, okay. She told me the maternity hospital's name. I went there. So it was an Akshaya Tritiya day, which is a very auspicious day. So there was some puja happening. I was waiting in their hall. Some prasad came, homemade adrak chai came. They said, unfortunately, we have guests. So our house is full, and last bed also is gone because some lady has come for delivery. But we know a family friend who has a hotel, but it's like a family friend. I know the owner of the hotel. So the husband of that doctor friend said, I'll take you there. You can go and stay there. Save, you'll have to pay 1,000 rupees. I said, fine. It's okay. At least known people. I went there, took my saddle bag, went up, they gave me a room. I ordered a dosa. The dosa came. I gave him the tip. closed the door, and then it all sank in Gayatri. I still see I've got goosebumps. I sobbed like a child for half an hour, knowing what if something would have happened to me. But that was a learning lesson of my life. After that, I carry a physical map with me, India map. I study the itinerary, I study surroundings, I contact local people that I'm coming, I know. So, and no exploring things without, I still go to unknown places, but somebody knows where I am, and take calculated risks, not like this. So that change, that was the scariest one, but a major learning experience. And then I came back and did a course of mechanic course. Yeah, I should know my motorcycle. So don't follow your train route. Don't Konark Express. Thank you for guiding my first itinerary. So that was the scary one experience. Yeah, but I also had wonderful experience during that first ride. So I stayed in a hut. I stayed in a petrol bunk.
You stayed in a hut, petrol bunk?
Yeah, petrol bunk because I couldn't reach place.
Okay.
So it was during rainy season, right? So with the employees, I slept with my yoga mat and I slept under the fan. So people used to think I'm a police officer. I don't know. They thought, one guy asked me, "Are you a police officer?" I said, maybe he thinks. So I buy that. I say, okay, at least they'll maintain a distance. So that way. Hut I would like to mention because it was raining near Loni and I couldn't reach.
This was again in the first
ride.
Okay.
And I was under some thatched kind of a place.
This was after you went to
after Solapur. After Solapur, on the way to Pune. And then I saw, one small hut with one lady and two daughters, and they were constantly peeping, giggling. Hee. So I just, because I was in Maharashtra, I spoke in Marathi. I said, what are you saying? So that lady said, you're Marathi. I said, yeah. So where are you going? I said, I'm supposed to reach my next destination, but it's raining heavily. She said, madam, this rain won't stop. Why don't you come in? Small hut. I would love to mention, how I learned from that lady. So when I went into the hut, so my shoes and all were wet. It was raining heavily. When I peeped in, that was the neatest hut I ever saw. So I asked her, where's your husband? She said, no, my husband has abandoned us, gone, and she used to work in the construction of the highway. And in that hut, I saw a self DIY, as you call it, made shelf, and there were books. That caught my attention as a teacher. I said, books in a hut. And that lady was making something called as bhakri, that you make a roti of jowar. She had made 3 big ones. For me, she was the richest lady because that day she must have come from work tired. So the daughters had one. The third one she broke into half. The bigger piece she gave me with the lasan chutney. And she said, have this, garam garam. She sacrificed her food that day. I didn't have much on me. So I shared the dry fruits and all that. And what she taught me the lesson. So she said, madam, your shoes are wet. She had old newspapers because the girls used to read. She used to get it from somewhere. So she stuffed those newspapers in my boots. Me being the educated, I said, what will you do with this? No, madam, it will dry. I said, no. Overeducated, no? Sometimes we just consider ourselves that we know too much. She said, no, and actually since till the morning, a lot of moisture were absorbed and my shoes were pretty dried. So she taught me this lesson. And then she gave me a newspaper to put my shoe, my jacket and everything. I slept in the night in that hut. Morning I had some money on me. I tried to give them. She refused 500 rupees. So the girls asked, do you have any books? So I do a lot of sketching and writing in my personal diary when I'm riding. I had a lot of sketch pens and color pencils and this scrapbooks kind of thing in a plastic bag because it was rainy season. So I said, I have this. Trust me that those girls, they just grabbed it. One was 7.5 and one was 5. And they used to walk down to the school. They were not working with her on the highway. They grabbed it and ran in that hut as if they got some treasure. I have given my phone number to those girls and the mother. I wish someday I get a call. I'm sure those girls have gone way beyond their, the life that they had. But I'm sure these kind of girls they'll educate themselves well and they'll be somewhere in a good position, and someday I'll get a call that, we are doing well. I hope. So I didn't have a photograph with them. I forgot to take because my mobile didn't have that camera and all that. I didn't realize. So I was so engrossed in those moments. But that taught me that, don't judge anybody. A lady sitting in the hut can also teach you something. And money doesn't make you rich. It's the heart that makes you rich. This is what I learned in my life. And that memory I mention everywhere because that changed my life. It grounded me, it humbled me, and it taught me that, we should respect whoever you meet, because every human being is special, and you get to learn something from them. So yeah,
very true.
So 2 incidences in the first ride itself.
One very scary,
and this was very humbling.
This was, yes. Yeah. I think motorbiking is not just sitting on a bike and just going like that. It teaches you a lot about life. Self-realization also happens on the way.
Yes, traveling itself, as Mark Twain has said, if you've not traveled, it's like reading first page of the book. That's it. If you want to read the entire book and enjoy it, travel, because nothing can teach you like traveling. You learn lots, and you not only about people and the culture and the food. You not only do you become tolerant, you learn a lot about yourself and somebody who's traveling with you. During travel, you understand a person's personality, because sometimes you can be in a situation where people get irritated. Then okay, all that sweet debonair is just for that. Some people become very strong during travel. So you not only find out about yourself, you find out about your friends with whom you're traveling. You find a lot about things around you. You learn so much. So it helps you gain knowledge. It helps you better your personality. Every travel, it's a new day.
And it also changes your perspective about society.
Absolutely.
Like how you learned. Don't judge a book by its cover. True example.
Correct. And not just that, you surprise yourself. You don't know that you're capable of taking up the challenges till you actually do it. So end of the day, you feel confident. Oh, I managed this, yeah. When I came out of that, though I cried, I realized, I said, oh, I came out of that situation on my own. There was nobody. So it gives you a different confidence that, it's not so scary.
I think life puts you in that situation, and only then you can realize that, I've come out of it. I can do this.
Yes. Only thing is, stay positive and don't lose focus. Had I got scared, I wouldn't have thought. So take the calculated risks.
So ma'am, let's go a little light. I always had these doubts. I think these are very silly doubts, silly questions, but I see that near the national highways or anything, there are no people around, there's no trees or nothing. So how do you pee? Sometimes you might feel sleepy. How do you you should not fall asleep while riding, of course. So how do you refresh yourself during the ride?
That's first of all, let me tell you, there's no question called as a silly question. As a teacher also, I used to always tell my students, there is nothing called a silly question. It's a question. So you are entitled to ask, and unless you don't ask, how will you know?
Yeah.
So, and this is in fact, it's a very, very important question that you have asked me. So first of all, there's something called as Peabody. PEEBUDDY that I carry with myself, and so it's a biodegradable cardboard like thick paper thing, which is like it's flat like this. You have to press it and it opens up like a funnel kind of thing, so you can stand and pee. So there are holes at the both the ends, so you don't have to worry about going anywhere if you don't have a bush. Of course, all the petrol bunks have bathrooms, though they are not very well maintained. But you can always. So it saves you from infection. So you stand and pee. You don't have to remove your gear or anything. So you just unzip. You stand and pee. Wash your hands, and those are biodegradable. So you discard it. So it's something called as Peabody. In fact, even the runners, marathoners, long distance ultra marathoners, they all use it.
Okay.
Yeah, and. Even though I had my hysterectomy and I was not going through my periods, Young girls go through that also. But people use menstrual cups, which are very helpful. So every time you stop, you empty the menstrual cup and you use it. But even though I've had my hysterectomy, I don't have my periods. I started riding after my hysterectomy, so I never had periods on my ride, fortunately. Unfortunate, whatever. But I still wear a pad and go, because the bike heats up, so it kinds of gets uncomfortable sometimes. So I always use a pad. And also keeps your undergarments healthy, because I don't carry much clothes, so then you can only discard the pad, so that way. So I use Peabody. Sleepy, that's a very good question. If you think that you're feeling sleepy, you don't realize, because sometimes even if you're not sleepy, if you have a very straight highway, you kind of get into those days. So it's called as highway hypnosis, which happens even in the car. You start drifting, and you think you're going straight, but you start drifting. So because you're concentrating so much that you've gone into that hypnotic stage, you don't realize. So that's very dangerous. That's why accidents happen. So the moment you think, so that's the reason you sing. I don't listen to music which is dangerous, because your ears should be, first of all, because your helmet is so snugly fit, it brings down your hearing capacity. And you should never listen to music, because it cuts down the sound around you. You should be cautious about the vehicles, anything coming in. So if people listen to music, it's not in the car. I'm talking about the motorcycle. It's a wrong practice, I would suggest. Some people do. It's up to each one, but technically you should not do it. So I sing. You sing a lot. I talk to my motorcycle. I talk to my God, like Ganesha. Or I just sing loudly. So all my favorite Kishore Kumar songs. But when I realize, first of all, that's the reason I don't have heavy lunch, as I told you, because I'm riding during the day, right? So breakfast, yes, I have. I keep stopping after every 1 hour or 60 kilometers, whichever is earlier. Because also, when you're riding, you're sitting like this, so you kind of
your posture is
not
fixed.
just posture, even your blood flow, kind of
numbness,
and then you want to relax, so you do your little stretches. Bike also needs a little rest, so if you have a dhaba, have chai. Chai is like the best thing to have. You have 1 cup of tea and you get that kick to go chai or coffee. So you do that. I only eat dry fruits or a dry fruit laddu during lunchtime if I'm too hungry. But I avoid. I never have heavy meal during my rides, lunch especially. So if in case, if I'm still sleepy, I've not slept well in the night because of excitement or whatever, I carry a yoga mat with me always. Now, of course, with those flyovers and all that, the trees have gone. But in the initial 4-5 years of my riding years, there were a lot of trees along the highway. Or, if you're in the villages, again, you get good farm land and all that. Or someone's garden, you ask them. So, a lot of people carry tent. I have not done tent part of it yet. I want to do that. But what I do is I park my motorcycle. With my motorcycle and with all the luggage, and I'll become like a barrier. Okay. On the highway, under a tree, I spread my yoga mat, take my tank bag, put it under my head, doze off for 15-20, put up an alarm on my mobile. And I have a pouch here which has all my important things. Nobody can take it away. So it's inside my jacket. So I put an alarm about 15-20, power nap. I have that nap, freshen up and have my water, wash my face, proceed. So I sleep on the...
You slept on the highway?
Yeah. So people don't even notice. They think the bike is parked. Absolutely safe. I've done that many times. I've slept in the garden kind of a thing. And when I did one ride with one of my dear friend. So, of course, those are unofficial photographs. Every time, that was after my major accident. So, I was a little tired, and I was a little anxious also, because my foot will be able to take it off. She has clicked photographs of me sleeping in various poses, like this, like that, and standing on top, and I have not had an idea, because so they are not, I will not share them. They are unofficial photos. So I have done that. Just 15 minutes and it helps you refresh instead of risking your life. And we have lost a lot of bikers because they've gone into that hypnotic stage and they've gone and actually hit into a parked lorry and died. We've lost some good bikers due to this accident. Sometimes they've gone in the night and they've not realized. You know, so that's very dangerous. So that's how. So I take naps, or if you know you have a coffee shop. We had one cafe coffee day on the way, I remember, and there was the thin bench. So on that thin bench, I dozed off for 15-20 minutes. So she's clicked standing on top of the other thing, and then I said, "Why did you click?" No, I said, "You better not put this on social media because sometimes you're drooling and you're sleeping. Yeah. So your jacket is somewhere and your face is like this." But you doze off. The 15-20 minutes also, 10-15 minutes of power nap also helps.
I have recently heard this, that drink and drive is dangerous. Of course, we know that.
Definitely, you should never do that.
But sleep and drive is also very dangerous because we don't know when we are sick and we can't measure it.
You should not drive if you're sleepy, and if you have not slept the previous night or before your long ride, don't do it. I've slept at a petrol bunk. Like during my first ride, people got worried who saw me off because I was excited till 1 o'clock. I was packing. I didn't know how to pack. My first ride, 5 o'clock I left. So I was tired, and somewhere near Tuni, I stopped at a petrol bunk. One local bikers had come to see me off till there. I saw them off. I said, "I'm feeling sleepy." It was around 1 or 2 hours. So I actually they have the place now near like a small thing near the where you fill up petrol.
Yes,
there was hardly anybody. So I slept there only for 15 minutes, but that helped. So never be sleep deprived and drive. That's the most dangerous, because sleeping at will, you feel you're concentrating, you're risking the people even in the car or on a motorcycle. You go and hit somebody, you're risking somebody else's life as well, And other thing is, be very cautious. First of all, in India, be cautious about the cattle or the animals. They come from anywhere on the highway, and you basically, again, it's dangerous.
Anyway, like they
and if you're crossing villages, slow down, because people in India they come from that opposite side with the light on. They think it's their right
on also.
Yeah, that's again dangerous. And most of these villages roads which come on the highway, they don't have any
proper
barrier.
Divider.
No barrier. They just, you are in full speed and suddenly they're here. So be very cautious of that. So you have to be alert 360 degrees. Keep an eye. Maintain a speed where you can control your vehicle, because you've lost good bikers because they've been in 100 plus speeds, because nowadays bikes you can really rev up and speed, and youngsters they like to go in speed. So I maintain a speed of 65 to 80 if it's a really good highway and there are no villages opening up into this, and during the day. But 65-70, people call me a slow biker. I don't mind, because people want to reach the destination fast. My purpose is not that. I want to enjoy the nature. I want to sit at the dhaba, talk to you. There's no hurry to reach the destination. The journey is more important for me. So they call me a slow rider. That's why people don't ride with me much, because they say, boring, slow, this one cruising, old lady. So, but I enjoy that. I maintain 65 to 70. I have a good control over my vehicle if something happens, and it maintains my vehicle well. When you maintain a certain speed, your vehicle lasts longer. So it's been 10 years almost, and my bike is still in very good condition. So yeah.
Ma'am, so far in this conversation, you have been continuously telling about that accident, the major phase. I know it is hard, but can we talk about that accident? What happened? This is just one part of the story. For the rest, check out the other episode on our channel or playlist. Thank you for listening to this episode of Abhilasha. If this touched you, inspired you, or made you think, please do us a small favor. Like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel Abhilasha, Stories from Heart, Mind and Voice.